So the continuation of the bear market sounds pretty grim, I know, but we must not get confused and brought into the market by some news, potentially fake news, bullish news to get you in the mood for investing. There's a few charts that we need to look at. There's a few things that are going up that don't need to go up, and there's a few things that are happening which is kind of obvious in terms of the nature that they're doing. So let's talk about it. On the screen, BTC. Not looking great, right? Looking weak in my opinion. I think volatility is coming. I think we're going to get some sort of move in the next few days. It is Independence Day today in America. The weekend has been a part of the celebration. There's been nothing happening this weekend. Things are changing though, potentially in terms of the dynamic of the market. We're coming into the summer. Usually more and more spending happens in the summer. Let's see if that's reflected in the market, in the world of, just economics. People buying things, people doing things. Will it reflect? Who knows, right? So let's talk about BTC. Not looking great, as I've said, right? Looking at the overall spectrum, looking at the weekly time frame, let's have a little bit of a look. That is it. Not looking great. In my opinion, the time for investing in dollar cost averaging, maybe a little bit of a smidge here and there on a few assets, but only with funds you can afford to lose, and you know that it's potentially going to go lower. I personally, not financial advice, think that this is the bottom. I don't think it is yet. Personally, I think there's a lot more room to go. But we are on a strong psychological level. We are just under 20k. We are just above where the all-time high was in terms of the previous cycle. So it's a huge catalyst in that opinion. We are below big numbers. Moving average 200, for example, we're below that. Big important thing. But in terms of the weekly trend, it's looking relatively strong. Even if we do bounce from here, it's still a bear trend. So just be careful, right? One thing I need to talk about, and I do want to talk about, is ultimately what's happening here. We had a little bit of a random bit of relief the other night. It was in the Asian session, we popped up and then we just melted back down. I believe that we may be looking at this as a potential move for the liquidity side of it. This could be where we could be going if things get pretty volatile soon. In my opinion, the more times we're testing around this region, the more weaker it's going to get. It's kind of obvious. It's how the markets run, right? So just be careful with that. We could be retesting that 19k level, that 19,800, or roughly around that EMA, very, very soon, right? Even when this video comes out, may have happened. That is where a lot of campers will be, in my opinion. I think a lot of bearish selling is going to be around this psychological 20k region. So why would you want to go long now and try and get above that for a little bit of an extra % or two? I would wait for a trend to form before you start looking at trading. Not investing, trading, right? So just be careful. The reason why I say that is because when we go to like the 6 hour time frame, for example, we're starting to range. We have been for the last few days now. And as I say, weekend celebrations, Independence Day, the stock market is closed today. It's going to create that kind of vibe, right? So it is, in my opinion, a no trade zone, certainly when we're looking at that situation. Let's look at other things. I think tomorrow is key. Tomorrow is key. Markets are opening, and also we've got to look at the news. What's happening with the news, as I say? This is a big thing. Another one. Another one has halted withdrawals and hires advisors for a potential restructuring. That is not great. A Singapore-based trading platform, operating in India, essentially has suspended its withdrawals. Vold, it's called. And it's backed by some pretty big people. It's backed by, I think, Coinbase Ventures, Peter Thiel's Valar Ventures, and Bentara Capital. That's not good. Another thing as well, and as I mentioned before at the start of this video, some things are just normal. Whales accumulating. It happens, right? So overall at the time, we've got to look that some people are still buying Bitcoin. Still relatively okay value, personally. It's not going to change your life, but big money will look at this level for obvious reasons. But we've also got to look down here. The partial sell-offs that we're getting by miners is hugely important. If they are getting closer to that profit margin, where if they hodl it for a bit too long, they may well lose their money, there's a chance that every mined Bitcoin at the moment may well be getting sold on the open market just to cover some costs. There's nothing wrong with that. Business costs, right? So just be careful among that fear. But at the moment, there is definitely some BTC being sold by miners. So it's an important factor. But one factor that we have not talked about yet. And it's a factor of obvious kind of situations here, right? Let me just zoom out on this and show you a few things. This is the dominance of the dollar. BTC dominance, we all know it. This is the USDC, USDT dominance, right? As it stands, the trend is very, very strong. And it remains strong, in my opinion. The weekly time frame looking incredibly strong. The daily time frame showing some signs that an impulse has already happened. And yeah, we're faltering a little bit here. But in reality, the trend is still very much in motion, right? We've got to be careful here. We've got to be very, very careful in terms of where our investment goes. If we are going to retest that 17% level, which we all know with dominance charts, up is bad, down is good, we're probably going to see more and more money go out of cryptocurrency assets and into stable currencies as a risk-off mentality, just to play the waiting game, see what happens. Now, the element is not many people are going to be putting them into staking. They're going to be just holding their hands and sitting on their hands. So we've got to be somewhat careful. As it stands, that is a bullish trend. It's a good-looking bullish trend. Even if this retraces a little bit, you got to think of the dynamic of the dominance charts. Everything doesn't look great. We're in downtrends everywhere, apart from that. That one is the one that you don't want to have a uptrend in when the market's going crap. It's the worst situation. Following on from that, though, another thing you got to look at is the total market cap. You do not want this going down and melting down, and also, for obvious reasons, the dominance chart's going up. It's a huge recipe for disaster. Even in the BTC dominance, you're going to be losing Satoshis, and certainly even more so in the dominance of USD, you're going to be losing, guess what? Your tether amount, essentially, your value appreciation. Right now, this is looking pretty awful, right? Looking at the weekly time frame, you can see that. That is pretty ugly. That is like where I'm like looking at certain things, right? These are big levels down here, right? The previous all-time high, as you can see, and this is just a random fib number that I've got plonked on my chart, which is roughly around a monthly level, which is around $600 billion. We're getting pretty close to that level. So we've got to look at a fact. One, expect bounces. Expect some bounces, but do not believe for 1 minute that that is a confirmed bottom. Everything will bounce. Something will bounce. It has to bounce. But the previous bounce that we've had from a couple of weeks ago with that massive dump, we're not bounced enough. We've not bounced enough. It was also relatively weak. So just be careful. That is a really big telling sign. But when we look at the overall dynamic of the market, it's not looking great when you got companies going bust, VCs going bust, withdrawals stopping, miners selling, FUD everywhere. Remember the FUD? The FUD is unbelievable at the minute. Like, everyone's talking about all these exchanges going to ruin. They're not. The problem is, psychologically, you're going to be scared, right? You're going to test the withdrawal system. You're probably not going to put your money on the exchanges anymore. And that, in its own sense, is going to make a lot more illiquid market on the market. And then guess what? You're going to have bigger slippages, and more importantly, more exchanges will go insolvent. So we've got to be somewhat careful. Overall coins to keep an eye on is obviously Ethereum for obvious reasons, right? Looking pretty ugly. We're below this level. Wouldn't shock me in the slightest if we go and retest this region. It's a very, very simple level. It's a previous all-time high pretty much, right? So just keep an eye on it. But when we look at the overall market of everything, right, there's nothing massive to kind of get excited about at the moment. Yes, there's YouTubers doing videos 3-4 times a day, which is ridiculous in my opinion. But there will be opportunities to start accumulating slowly in the next coming weeks, months, whatever time frame, because we need to wait for a consolidation. We need to wait to see if it's safe to kind of add a little bit of sauce here and there. There's nothing wrong with that. There really isn't nothing wrong with that, providing you are buying a key level. However, that being said, going back to it, if this remains strong, it's not great. Not great at all. If this remains relatively like downtrendy, not great neither. But ultimately, the market won't always be in this state. Yes, we probably will go lower. But at the end of the day, it's opportunity now. This market is growing, network effect is getting bigger, it's fine. But the one thing and the final thing we need to talk about before we go is obviously the dollar index. The whole dollar index in terms of the overall markets is looking pretty high. And it probably will remain high for a while due to how things are going. When we're looking at the overall markets, even though they're shut today, they're not looking great. This recorded, remember, on Friday, one of the worst 6-month periods in 50 years. That is pretty significant, right? So it's looking pretty ominous. Anyways, if you enjoy my stuff, give it a like. I am going live tonight on my Patreon. If you want to jump in, there's a link below. And yeah, I shall see you very, very soon.